Welcome to What Do You Say, the podcast that peels back the layers of remarkable individuals to reveal their extraordinary sides and their incredible lives. I'm your host, Frank Termini, and I'm absolutely thrilled to embark on this journey with you. The podcast name's What Do You Say, but that's not how it's said.
How do you say it?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
You got it. We say.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say? My name's Andrew Termini. With me, as always, is my brother and host, Frank Termini. If you like what we're doing here, please remember to go out there, like, subscribe, and leave us a review, and turn on those notifications so you can be notified every time we upload some new content.
Turn on notifications, yeah.
Yeah.
So how about Michelle? The other day, she tells me, because in the last podcast, I had a blue shirt on.
Yeah, you did.
And she goes, if you're going to sit like that, don't wear blue.
Why?
Apparently my stomach was hanging out. So I'm going to be wearing black for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
all black. I almost just wore a robe.
Yeah.
And just went Hugh Hefner style.
A muumuu.
Yeah. No, and then this is what she did to me. So she does that to me, and then we were in church on Saturday night, and as church is starting, she leans over to me and she goes, you're starting to get known for only putting men on your podcast. My right hand to God, this is what she says to me right when church is getting ready to start, and I just said, can we talk about this later? I said, we just had you and Kat on, which really we've had Kat, Devin,
and
Mary Ortega.
Yeah.
It's really only like a sixth.
Well, I mean, we're open to women coming on the show.
Well, I wanted the one girl from Love Letters to come on. This girl she's an entrepreneur and she does really well with this. I guess it's like a T-shirt business that she does.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, but
she does really good.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get her on, but she didn't ever call me back.
Well,
so I'm going to call her again now.
Yeah, and hopefully she listens to this and, we want to get you on.
Right.
Please.
Right. So today we're here with Pastor Phillip O'Reily, who has been addressed here, maybe everyone.
Maybe every podcast.
Because Devin was on, Kurt was on.
Yeah.
And then me and you've addressed him.
Neil was on.
Neil was on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, me and you have, made reference to him, whether it was, man, this guy's crazy.
Yeah.
That's true.
He has impacted our lives for sure.
Certainly. The whole family.
Yes, the whole family.
Yeah, me, you, mom. Mom now goes to the Rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
She started with you.
Yeah.
So here, I'll tell you. So here, we should just say that he's the pastor at the Rock of KC. He started the church, about 14 years ago?
20.
It's been 20?
Yeah, 21 in June.
21 in June. Okay, and so what did you do prior to ministry? Let's start there.
I was a college student going to college.
So you were in ministry way before you had your own church then?
Yeah, I came to Kansas City in '83, February, moved from Dallas to Kansas City.
Why did I think you grew up in Liberty?
I did.
Okay.
But I went away to MU down at Mizzou where God got a hold of me and totally wrecked my world.
And said you're going into ministry.
Yeah, well, I fought it. I didn't immediately say yes. But I was in my dorm room on a Friday night, was supposed to be outside partying with the guys because that's what we did.
Yeah, I've been in college. I lived in Mizzou for 9 weeks. I know what goes on down there.
So that's where it started. Like, I've always believed in God, but I call it the Tylenol. God, reach for it when I need it, put it back on the shelf when it did its job.
Right.
So, praying for, why'd you let my dog die? I had this weird, kind of view of God that, he's just out to rain on my parade. But, and so why'd you let it rain? We're supposed to be at the lake this weekend, water skiing, that kind of thing.
Right.
But I would pray, like when I was in trouble or I didn't study for a test and I needed to pass it.
Right.
I mean, so that was how I handled that, right? So I wasn't an unbeliever, but I wasn't actively went to church, got baptized. My mom took 5 boys.
So O'Reilly, I got to think you were born and raised Catholic.
Well,
Irish Catholic is my guess.
Irish Catholic, but my grandfather wanted to become a Mason, and they wouldn't allow that. So they got out of the Catholic Church. So I wasn't raised Catholic.
Okay, all right.
It's in my ancestry.
Sure.
So I got a funny story about that one.
Let's hear it.
Well, after I finally, excuse me, gave my life to Christ, and in that dorm room that night, when I was just laying in my bed, like, what's the purpose in life? I was having like this existential crisis going on. Like, what's the purpose? What's the meaning? I'm here. College is fun. I'm not flunking out. I'm not addicted to drugs. My girlfriend hadn't broken up with me. I'm good, but there's got to be more. And in that moment, I found myself, I rolled off my bed onto my knees and lifted my hands in the air, which is never done. And I said, God, if you're real, come into my life, change me. I'm sick and tired of living this way. And that moment I started weeping, and a peace came over me that I couldn't explain, like I'd never had before. Total peace. Rolled back on the bed, went to sleep, got up the next morning. There's a guy on the dorm floor, went to church every weekend. He still partied with us and stuff, but he went to church every weekend. And I asked him, hey, I just wanted to go to church. Like, I had this desire to go to church. I dropped out. My mom had taken us 5 boys, but my dad would drop us off, pick us up, but he'd never go. So in junior high, Dad didn't go. Why do we have to go? So I dropped out of going to church. And so we started going to church with this guy, Prairie Grove Baptist Church outside of Columbia, little Baptist church. I didn't know anything though. I mean, literally, like, I don't know what a Baptist was. I didn't know what a Catholic was. I didn't know what Orthodox. I didn't know nothing. But this guy's preaching. My heart's pounding. Like, how does he know? Like, he's inside my head.
Right.
That was my encounter. But I had no reference as all. Like the Bible, Jesus, salvation, getting saved, give your heart to Christ, surrender. That was like, those are foreign words to me. I had to learn it all. And so I just jumped in, devoured the scriptures, asked questions. And then I started leading other friends to Christ. I mean, it was just, and had a Bible study. I didn't know. I just learned. Back then, there's no computers.
Yeah.
There's no Google search. You had to get literal books, you know? And then I started sensing like there's something else. And I was like, no, I'm not going to, like, God, I'm here to go to school. I was going to major in business, considering law after my my bachelor's degree. And I was like,
What was your bachelor's degree in?
well, it was going to be in business,
Okay.
but I'm a freshman now.
Okay.
This is all happening about the end of my freshman year, towards the end. And so I just went home on summer break, started Bible study, just leading people to Christ. But still, like, I'm headed this direction. I'm going back to MU, and I did. I went back to MU, and I just finally, it was just like, I'm watching a movie. This will date me, but it was Ice Castles with Robbie Benson. He's got a girlfriend, and she's a figure skater, and she has an accident where she goes blind, and he's teaching her to skate again. And so they're at the family table, and the dad's talking to him. Why are you doing this? You're just setting her up for failure. And he makes a statement: if I don't try, I'll have to live the rest of my life wondering what it'd been like if I had. And it was like the voice of God coming off that movie theater into my chest. And it's like, and I immediately had this vision of me sitting at a bar, having drinks, and just, I felt called to ministry one time, but I didn't do it. And I said, that flashed before me. It's like, I can't live with that.
Yeah.
So that was my surrender.
Right.
But
It's easier to live with failure than regret type
Yeah,
thing, where
yeah.
you'd rather try it and fail.
yeah. And so when I finally decided, okay, I'm going all in. My uncle, who is still alive today, he's 93, 94, only living sibling of my dad and his two sisters. He goes, well, we're Catholic. That's our heritage. And I've got a 20-karat gold watch that's got Father O'Reily inscribed on it. Why don't you go into the priesthood? Since you're going to go into the ministry, go into the priesthood. I'd love to pass this along to you. And I remember looking at him. So, Uncle Ed, I said, I think you have to be called to be a celibate. And I don't think sleeping with a gold watch and sleeping with a woman's going to work for me.
right, yeah.
Even if it's a Rolex.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. No, I'll take the woman.
That was a funny story.
Yeah.
And that really happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here, having sex is a big deal.
Yeah.
Let's just, let's point out the elephant in the room. That's a big thing, I mean, I respect priests for doing it, of course, and they're called to do that too.
Yeah.
It's a calling.
Yeah.
To live in poverty and live a celibate life, but
Right.
not for me.
Yeah. No, I knew enough of the gospel at that time to know that you have to be called to that. It had to be a gift. Otherwise, you're going to fight that.
And you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And here, not for nothing, there's a lot of them that still do.
Well, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, there's I think you can really say, hey, listen, when you suppress the urge to have sex, not only does it grow, but it can grow perverse.
Exactly.
And I think, the Catholic Church has definitely had their issues with that.
Sure, absolutely.
As well as
really anyone.
any denomination.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a strong drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here you look at sex trafficking. I mean, what else do you got to say?
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
the number one biggest criminal enterprise. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that could probably cause that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a strong drive. I've talked to God about it many times. Like,
Yeah.
how can you put that? How come you put such a strong drive in this?
I think scientifically, I've heard people. I heard a doctor say one time we were talking about it that the drive to have sex is stronger than your drive to eat.
That is insane.
And I love eating.
I love a good pork tenderloin. Let me tell you what.
So that's a you got to really wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of the drive to grow perverse, I mean, you're also very much an overcomer in that you overcame something that happened to you when you were a young boy that I listened to the story, and it's only by the grace of God that I think people can actually pull through something like that. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah.
And how you got from where you were to where you are, because I know people, and you hear about it all the time, where people don't get over that sometimes.
Right.
They literally live this victim mentality from it.
Right.
And so you don't. And I'm actually fascinated by that. So if you would kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So I did, when I was about 10 years old, we had a friend of the family who was a part-time police officer, and not that I'm not trying to pay. I love police officers.
Right. No, I understand.
I love
that.
law enforcement. I love first responders, fully supporting them. But he'd befriended the family and was, he'd come and pick us up, take us for cokes. We lived three houses up from Liberty, from the main park in Liberty, where the baseball games were all played and stuff. And so we'd go to baseball games. He'd be there, et cetera, et cetera. One day he got permission to come and get me and take me for a Coke. We'd had it happen before, but this time was different. We got in his little blue, I remember it clearly, a little blue Datsun. I think it was like a 260Z or one of the older Datsuns, right? And conveniently now, not knowing at the time, but he had the side door, the passenger door was hit, so he couldn't open it. So I crawl in across, and instead of going to get a Coke, we drive into the park, into a little secluded area, and he pulls over, and I said, "What are we doing here?" And that's when he began to unzip my pants, unzip my belt, and I'm 9 years old. This guy's 6 feet something, and I'm going, "What are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, you need to stop doing that." And he wouldn't, and so I just I went somewhere else, which is pretty common.
That's what that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty common. You know, you go somewhere else until
it's over.
it's over. And so he drives.
So you have no recollection, basically, at that point.
At that point, it was, you know, I know he fondled me. He did this stuff, and like I'm not responding. Like I'm just, and next thing I know, he's dropping me off at the end of my street. He threatened to castrate me if I ever told anybody, and I believed him. I'm at 9 years old.
Yeah, you're gonna believe
Yeah.
it.
And I was traumatized. I ran home, and I went and hid underneath my bed. And it's about 6 o'clock in the evening. We always ate at about the same time. My dad would get off work. My mom would have dinner. It's like that was family dinner time. And Mom came looking for me, says, found me under the bed. "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just hiding." Like, that's it. She goes, "Well, it's time." She didn't suspect anything.
Right.
And she goes, "It's time to eat. Get your hands washed. Come to eat." That was it.
So was this something that repetitively happened, or was it a one-time?
That was a one-time deal. Now, found out years later he'd done it to a whole bunch of kids my age. Like, he was a pedophile.
So you had spoke to other people that he did that to.
Years after, I told nobody. Like, he threatened to castrate me. I'm telling nobody.
Right.
Like,
So your mom and dad and
No.
none of them ever knew.
no, not. And it wasn't until I actually had that encounter with God in that dorm room, 213 Kramer Hall, MU, that I began to learn about forgiveness, like reading the Bible. And that's how it all started coming out. Like, I said, "Well, God, who do I need to forgive? Like, show me. I want my heart clean." And I'm thinking, I got a 5-minute prayer and we'll be done. For 2 weeks straight, I'm walking to class, middle of the night, people would come into my head and my mind, and he was one of them. It's like, "You need to forgive him." Okay, I forgive you. And so that was that until later on, mostly after I got married. You know, fast forward to 23. I was 19 when that encounter with God happened. So 4 years later, I've gone to Bible college, I've met my wife, we've gotten married, and these things come up. You know, marriage creates.
Yeah. I get
So,
it. Yeah.
so Dr. Tim Keller says we get married to get happy, and God gets us married to make us holy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so the pressure of just, yeah. And so these things were coming up. And it's like, you probably need to get some counseling. You know?
So this happens at 9. You don't go to counseling until you're 23.
Oh, yeah. When I started learning about, through counseling classes I took in college and understanding the soul and how the enemy comes in to build strongholds inside of us, I started learning all this and the importance of forgiveness and childhood trauma and working through that. So had a lot of ministry through that, and I'm thinking I'm doing well. Like, I'm good. I'm getting better, and I had, but there was still an element that would trigger me, that would put me in that fight or flight mode. I would go back to being a 9-year-old kid in a car, trapped. And if fighting didn't work, then I would just shut down. It would happen. And I hated it. I didn't want it to be there.
So you recognized it. You felt it.
Oh, yeah. No, it would rise up. I'd try to suppress it. pray, God, I don't want to be this way. I'm sorry. Tell my wife, apologize. She'd ask me simple questions. I'd get defensive. She'd go, why you get so defensive? Or she'd challenge me at times like, why don't you want to deal with this? I would shut down.
At what point did you tell Susan?
Yeah, so we would openly talk about it. And so we'd talked about it before. And I had even gone and went through some ministry with a counselor and the Holy Spirit where I had some major breakthroughs. Like one time this ministry time, I had this vision like I'm a little boy in this dark room. And the door opened up and it was Jesus. And he came in and he got me and he took my hand and he walked me into this light. And it was powerful. I'm thinking, this is freeing. I dealt with the emotion of it. Because I would tell people, I said, man, I got molested. Just forgive him and move on. I'd never touched the emotion, though. I was logically and spiritually, I'd forgive him. I'm like, hey, it happens. Move on. But it was very harsh. It wasn't.
No grace in it.
Yeah, no grace. Because I hadn't touched it yet. So that experience happened, but there was still another layer. And that's where a lot of times things are protected. Lies protect other lies until you get to the root lie. And that's when I started reading and understanding that. We focused on the event. I got raped. I got molested. I got defrauded. My brother cheated on me. Whatever it is, that's the event. But what I learned was the lie gets planted on how I interpret it.
Say this again.
Okay. We focus on the event that happened.
So let's talk about just your situation.
Yeah, in my situation.
You're talking about, okay, you were raped at 9 years old.
Yeah.
So that's the event.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
event. Yeah.
But the event isn't really the problem.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a problem and it's horrible. It's
Right.
terrible. But it wasn't what was causing negative ramifications into my adulthood.
There was an injected lie.
How I interpreted it, which was the voice of the enemy, which I had talked to a counselor about. And it wasn't until this crisis was going on in my life, and I literally called him up on the phone to a meeting that I was dreading to go to. I was dreading this meeting. There'd been a number of them, but this one was like, I'd lost sleep over it. And I literally, when I called him on the phone, driving to the meeting, I said,
Who'd you call?
the guy that I had gone to marriage counseling with, and
He was your counselor.
yeah, he was counselor.
Got it. Okay.
And I called him and I said, Tim, I'm headed to this meeting. I literally feel like I'm going to die. Like I was feeling like something rising up, choking me out. He said to me, he goes, Phillip, you were just with your Father in heaven. He knew I prayed every morning. He goes, and then he made this statement, and this was it. This was the key. He says, you're not a little boy hiding underneath your bed anymore. He says, you're a child of God, and you'll never walk into a room alone again the rest of your life. The moment he said it, I don't know, you ever seen The Green Mile?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where
The flies come out of his mouth.
Yeah, I literally felt like whatever was at my throat left. I mean, it was gone instantly. I had just like that salvation experience in that dorm room, I had an instant peace, complete peace.
So your lie
My lie was
you're alone and
there's no one to protect you.
Yep.
That's how I interpret it as a little boy. That was a lie.
Yeah.
The enemy planted. And so whenever I felt attacked by a question or anything,
You had
at
to
all,
protect yourself.
then I went back to being a 9-year-old boy because there's no one else to protect me. And it caused so many problems in my pastoral life, in my marriage life. And my wife can testify to you that it's what we call maintenance-free deliverance, maintenance-free healing. Like, sometimes you have to keep reminding yourself who you are. Like, I can do this, I can make it. This is free, like, it's gone. Like, the lie is not there. I don't get triggered anymore at all. Like, I still debate, I'll still give pushback, but there's nothing taken over. It's all either out of, hey, we're going to horse around here.
Bust chops, you're not going to get emotionally involved.
No, it's like, I literally freedom. And I'm like, man, I wish I could have spared my wife a lot of hurt and pain and myself. But for whatever reason, it didn't come out till later. And so, that was.
So you lived this lie for how old were you?
20 years. Like
29. So about 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And wrestling through it, and praying, seeking God and seeking counsel. But for whatever reason, I don't know God's timing. I can't figure it out.
Well, it's not only that, but that's definitely part of it. But you also made a comment that there's a layer to the lie.
Yeah.
So there was other things that had to be peeled back.
Exactly.
Before you could even get to that.
Yeah. And I was gaining understanding of how it works, how the enemy works in the soul. I mean, I was saved. I'm going to heaven. I'm that's all done, right? But I still had this lies in my soul that were manifesting with pushback, defensiveness, or shut down. I'm going into protection mode.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing.
At what point? Now, did this gentleman maintain a relationship with your family, and was he a family friend? And did you ever speak to your parents about this?
Not my brothers, not my parents.
And you never even addressed him.
No, it wasn't. And see, here's the crazy thing. This all happened, and I'm thinking, I got to forgive. Like, that's all I knew. That was my limited understanding. It wasn't till years later that I go, oh my God, knowing what I know now, if he's not dead or in prison, he's still doing this.
Yeah.
Because just what I've learned. And so I did have this ethical crisis. Like, what is my responsibility? So I went out to a website. I said, hey, does anybody know whatever happened? And I put his name out there. And his brother-in-law, who I knew, which I didn't know was his brother-in-law, private messages me. He said, hey, what are you looking for? What's up? Why are you looking for him? I said, I just got some personal reasons. He goes, he's in prison in Illinois for messing with kids. And I thought, oh, praise God. He's not doing this.
Right.
And I said, well, what prison? So I'm like, I'm going to go see if I can go visit him. I want to go
confront
him. I want to lead him to Christ. That's where I'm at now. Like, dude, and I went through that whole system and wasn't able to get in touch with him. I just was getting blockaded. And then I get a message from his brother-in-law again. He goes, yeah, he's scheduled to get out in X amount of times, and he doesn't want to. He goes, he doesn't want out because he knows he's going to repeat.
Yeah.
So this guy's in his probably, 70s now?
Right.
Yeah.
He knows. Like, he's still not, he wants to go do it again. He didn't want out. Well, fast forward, he ends up getting sick, and he ends up dying in prison.
So how much older was he than you?
I would say he's 10 or 12, 15 years maybe.
So he was anywhere between 20 and 25 years old.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about what he was doing to others until.
You had enough on your plate to unpack.
Sure.
And heal on your own.
Yeah.
And I think when you probably got to a place where you found yourself, further along in the healing process, did it dawn on you that, oh my gosh, he's probably out there doing this to others?
Right. Most people don't get free on their own.
Right. Yeah.
That's a tough thing to get freed from too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yeah.
How did it impact that event? Impact the trajectory of your ministry?
Well, like I said early on, I'm like, when I had encountered people that stuff had happened, I hadn't touched the emotional aspect of it. So I was like, hey, I've been molested too, man. Just forgive and move on. Like, that was it. So having gone through it, a whole new compassion set in for me. Like, I've been there. I know what that feels like. I know the hiding. I know the shame. You know, there's just, people wonder. That's like when people say, why are these people coming out now, 26 years after the fact? I can understand.
Yeah.
Why? So, tell me why you think that is.
Well,
I've always wondered that.
Because I believed I was going to get castrated, and I wasn't going to. I knew
Yeah,
it.
at 9, you're going to be scared.
At 9,
Yeah.
and it is that powerful.
Well,
of control.
Your story changed how I educate my kids.
Yeah.
Because I tell my kids, listen, if somebody ever does something like that to you, this is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to say to you.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you they're going to hurt mom or dad, or they're going to hurt you if you say something.
Right.
Do not believe it. You come tell me if anyone ever does. I've had that conversation over and
needs
over.
to be happened.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't have those conversations back then.
Well, and unfortunately, you have to now.
We didn't tell kids, hey, if anyone touches you where your swimming suit covers, you need to let mommy or daddy know.
Yeah.
You won't be in trouble. You know, no one ever talked about that.
Yeah.
Like, no one.
Well, and they did talk about it when we were younger, but it was mom, dad, or the doctor. Nobody else touches you there. I remember, you know, that was really it.
It was the no-no zone, but
Right.
Yeah.
it wasn't really a how to navigate.
And I could even remember, like you get a mosquito bite on you, and you'll go to dad, and dad be like, Marilyn,
Yeah. Yeah.
come look at this, you know. But because he just, you know, he never really wanted to. It was just, Marilyn, come deal with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if your mom does it, you're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
But
But there's, you know, the power of that is, and then people are conflicted. They feel there's shame involved, and there's like, I must have done something to.
I think that's the
deserve
original
this.
lie for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I fully have a whole new compassion and, you know, for people, for victims,
Yeah.
and why they don't come out, you know.
I mean, and I think that some people, you know, we live in a world where people judge harshly,
Yeah.
and without knowing the full story, and you know, people are like, well, why are they coming out now? Is
Right.
is this a money grab?
Right.
And it's not. You know, it just takes one person to say, this guy did this to me, and
Gives the other person confidence.
his other person confidence.
Yeah.
You know what? You're not alone.
Yeah.
It also happened to me, and they're thankful that the initial person decided to speak up, because it starts the snowball effect of people being able to say, you know what, this guy or this woman was doing this to me, this person, and everybody.
Well, think about it. When is it ever an isolated incident? Nobody does that once.
No.
Nobody does that once. That's
No.
always a I mean, the fact that he only did it once to you,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I know.
lucky.
I know.
Or the fact that he never did it to any of your siblings or anything like that. I mean, you're really fortunate.
And that I don't know. He could have.
Right.
I've never really talked to my brothers about it. I
Right.
mean, they know.
that it happened to you.
Yeah, but I don't force them to tell me if, you know, I think it's an individual.
Yeah.
Every individual has to deal with it, you know,
Yeah.
when they're ready.
But it makes you think. Like, for me, sleepovers,
Oh, yeah.
no.
No.
I mean, if my kids could spend the night over a certain group of people's houses that I have known my entire life, you know, that I don't remember not knowing. And I'll tell you something else I always think about. Does, like, say Gemma or Gianna want to spend the night over someone's house? If they have an older brother,
Yeah.
Just little things like that you start thinking about. It's like, no, they got a teenage boy in the house. Nope, you ain't
Yeah.
spending the night.
Well,
Yeah.
You know.
one of the biggest things happening now in Children's Mercy, he has a whole wing for children on children sex crimes because of the internet and pornography.
Right.
These kids are getting introduced to it at 7, 8 years old now. 7 or 8 years old. Now, when I growing up, I had the Sears and Montgomery Ward catalog. That
Right, yeah.
was it, you know?
Yeah.
And you had
Maybe you go to the bra section.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah.
We were the Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah,
swimsuit edition.
that was a big deal. That was a big
But
deal.
I mean, but now it's like it's children on children acting out things they've seen, and that's why you've got to have an open dialogue with your kids. I mean, you have to.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right, because there people that aren't filtering parents who aren't filtering their children and what they're seeing online, that some children might be getting exposed to things that other children aren't.
Right.
And it's going to drive an urge in those children who are being exposed to those things to act out those things. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
That's scary.
It is scary, because now at this point you're thinking, well, who is my 8, 9-year-old spending time around, and are they?
Well, here, let me just tell you this. So, like I said, Gianna, here, if it's not one of 3 people, she's not spending the night.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
She's just not. And so my rule is, hey, if you want to have friends over, knock your lights out.
Right.
I don't care who spends the night over here,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But that can still bite you in the ass, because
Yep.
well, here's what happens. Gianna's not allowed to have a phone. I won't let her have one. Okay? But you name it. Whatever girl you name that's friends with Gianna that I let come over to this house and spend the night,
They'll
they're
have
going
phones.
to come over with a damn phone.
Yeah.
And then I got to police that freaking thing all night long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just making me like, here, you know what? We're not doing the sleepovers.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to police a phone.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
I'm just, I don't want to do it. I don't want to police a phone all night long.
Yeah.
And if you don't know me well enough to pick the phone up and call me directly, maybe your daughter shouldn't be spending the night over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. I don't want to police a phone all night long. It aggravates me. It aggravates. So it's like you can't get away from it.
No.
Because what do? Another kid comes over your house. You're going to say, "Give me your phone." You can't do that, can you? I don't know. Can you?
I'm going to say no.
I mean, you really shouldn't do that.
No, I'm going to say you don't have the right to do that.
No. I mean, what if her mom and dad want to call her?
Right.
So it kind of puts you in a little bit of a catch-22. But I'm like, look, man, I don't want to police and it doesn't matter who it is. I'm not picking on any one of them. It's every single girl that comes over this house, they got a phone.
Right.
If it's Gianna's age. Now, Gemma, no. But here, Gemma's had some friends come over, and Gemma's 10 that have had iPhones.
Oh no. Yeah.
And I'm like,
I think every child should have, obviously, adult restrictions for their device, but I think also coveted eyes is a great kind of
Andrew, they don't need an iPhone.
No,
You could get watches.
No, I
and
agree.
You could call them.
I 100% agree with you. I wish we can go back to the time where phones weren't around. There's a lot of positives to it, but there's also a ton of negatives. Let's bring back the pager.
There you go.
Can't look up the internet on the pager.
There you go.
You just can't control it, And then how many here? But you know what? Sometimes Gian will say, "Here, I got to use your phone for math. I got to use the calculator, or I got to use it for this. I got to look this up. I got to look that up. And here, take it."
We can't escape technology,
No.
and we can't escape artificial intelligence.
I just ran into a pastor. Ran into him. I was at a conference in Dallas, and he actually has a curriculum now for students to get a permit. So you have to have a permit to drive. So they have a permit for getting a phone. Like, you have to go through all of this. You got to learn all this before you even have permission to get a phone.
Social media training.
And then if if they have to have their phone taken away from them and they haven't been permitted, they have to take the class. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant thing just because these kids are going into it ignorant, really are. And there are predators, there are pimps, and there are pedophiles that are targeting children on the internet. And they're doing it through games.
Oh yes, 100%.
They're doing it through Snapchat. They're intent on doing it, and they're good at it. And if you're a parent and you don't believe that, you are living in la la land.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
You even got to watch like Xbox.
all of that.
Yeah.
Yes, because they can get in through chat rooms. And
Yeah. Because they don't just, you know the deal. You play them games. I don't, and I'm terrible because.
I don't play games, Frank. I quit school on account of recess.
But you play the you don't you
No. I have played games before. I mean, Fortnite's a good game. I mean,
here. I don't know how to do any of it, and that's not good because, you know, Frankie's in there and he's got the headphones on and he's talking to somebody, and come to find out one time he's talking to like a 18, 19-year-old guy.
exactly.
he might be talking to a 40-year-old guy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's the
Right.
gaming is, you know, it's exploded in
Because there's grown men that are addicted to gaming.
grown men that are definitely addicted to gaming.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
And I don't, here, he said, Dad, do you want to play this game with me? I said, yeah, sure. It isn't like it used to be where you turn it on and play, like you're playing in like 5 minutes. It's a 20-minute process.
Sure.
You got to pick your avatar. You got to.
yeah.
By that time, I lost focus. I was done.
Let me tell you something. You don't want to feel belittled. You ever been cursed out by a 9-year-old on a video game? I just
Humbling.
It's very humbling.
It's humbling.
Yeah. All right. I know I suck. Relax. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the microphone off. You can no longer talk to me.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, I've had to correct Frankie a couple times.
Oh sure.
He'll drop a couple GDs or something. I'm like, wait a second. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
We're not doing this. It's like, I can hear you. You know I can hear you.
Yeah.
But so I'll take it from him. You know, I got to take it from him for like a week at a time. You
Yeah.
know? So
At the end of the day, I think it needs to be part of the curriculum for children to understand
Yeah, sure.
the social media training and people's reach, and that people don't have, not everybody out there has genuine intentions.
Exactly.
You know, they'll make you think that they have genuine intentions.
Sure.
And that's how they start to manipulate.
Well, here it's funny because to be a coach at Pius, you have to every year I don't know if it's every year or every 2 years, but you have to take a course called Protecting God's Children, and in this course, they interview people who are convicted pedophiles, and then the convicted pedophiles tell you how they infiltrate.
Sure.
And they don't go after the kid. Ever. They initially go after the parent. They
Yeah.
want to get the parents nice and comfortable.
Oh yeah, it makes good sense.
There's 3 different pedophiles that they interviewed, and they all shared that common denominator.
Wow.
They all want to get the parents nice and comfortable, because then they don't care if you go pick up Phillip and get a Coke.
Exactly. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Makes
And
sense.
and it's, you know, and I've actually probably offended some people just because I'm like, my kids will ask me, because they always want to ask me in front of the parents, can I go spend the night over so-and-so's? And I got to tell them no.
No, I don't like them.
You know, it's like, no,
No,
you're
no,
not
no,
spending the
no.
night over there. And I don't dislike anyone.
No, I know that.
You
I
know,
know that. I'm just
but-
teasing.
But that's what, and I've told them 100 times, don't ask me in front of anyone.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't, and every time, Gemma especially, can I go spend the night over there? No.
Yeah. I used to do that too when I wanted to go, you know, like Michael and I growing up, we had sleepovers all the time, and if I wanted to go sleep over there, it would be a leverage thing, you know. I would ask Mom, because now Mom's going to, you know, have to listen to Fanny, you know, oh yeah, let him come over. You know, and it's like, all right, I got her now.
But they weren't thinking what we're thinking.
No.
At all.
No.
You know, and at the end of the day, the people that the guys that we ran around with, our parents knew their parents. It's, you know what I mean, and knew their grandparents, and you know, so the relationship extended back generations, right? So not that really makes you any safer. Let's face it. I mean,
No, usually it's somebody that
within the family.
Right.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a false sense of security anyway.
It is.
You know, but I don't know. What do you do? You know, you can't lock them up, unfortunately.
No.
So, okay, so you make it through that,
Yep.
and then now you're fully able, because I have to assume that was something that was quietly holding you back and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're going through life, you're doing things. I mean, I'm pastoring now, I'm building, growing, different things are happening, but it would just creep up on occasion, you know, where it would create, I could feel it, like when I got attacked or felt attacked, you know. It could have been innocent, an innocent question, but it triggered me. And so once I was free, I was free. It was like wonderful. It was like.
And this is before you go to Dallas.
Yeah, no, this is after. I mean, I've been to Bible college. I am pastoring. We're talking. Were you pastoring at the Rock when this? No,
okay.
no.
This was prior to the Rock.
I was pastoring at another church in Kansas City.
Got it.
And so that's what I mean. It carried with me into my early 40s.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Which I'm hopefully giving hope to anybody, no matter what your age, you can get set free. Like you still have. Why do you have some grown adults acting like kids?
I'm the worst.
Okay.
I'm
because
terrible.
there's some trauma or there's something there that's triggered that, and you're responding. Because here's my, I don't think the soul. You know, they say this person has an old soul because they talk like they're 50 and they're 20, right?
Right.
But my belief is that the moment you're injured in your soul area, like until that gets healed, until that lie is removed, whatever it is, you respond as a 9-year-old when that gets triggered. Okay? So like you're 50, but now you got triggered and you're going back to being a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And that's why we do the class called Discover Freedom, where there are lies and soul ties and different things. Let me ask this. Why have so many divorces and marriages and adulteries happened since Facebook, since the internet, reconnecting with old flames? So, I mean, you got 70-year-old people.
Yeah. Who've been married
That have not been around their old boyfriend, but because they're a widow and a widower, they think they're going back to being 16 again.
Yeah.
Because their souls are still there, but their bodies and their lifestyles and their choices are complete. I've seen it happen over and over again where they come together acting like they're teenagers, but they've got nothing in common. You know, infatuation lasts for a second.
Right.
Commitment lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen over and over again. It's because of soul ties that have never been properly severed in a healthy way.
Explain it. Now, I've been through Discover Freedom.
Yep.
I know what a soul tie is, but I don't know that our audience listening knows what a
I've
soul
went
tie is.
through a Discover Freedom, and I actually even done private sessions with Lori Rose, who was big in developing that program. Yes,
She was involved in it.
yeah. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around a soul tie. Now, I do understand, that a tragedy when a tragedy happens, that the devil is always going to inject a lie. I understand that.
Right.
And then I also understand that you can make an agreement with that lie and live like it's truth.
Yep.
And I understand that, and I can understand that can affect everything in your whole entire life. But soul tie is something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around too.
Yeah. I think from a scriptural standpoint, when the scripture talks about when you come together sexually with another person, you become one spirit with, or one with them. That's the concept of body, soul, and spirit. So that's the New Testament. Old Testament is basically heart and body, which included the spirit. But the Greek understanding is we're tripartite. We're body, soul, and spirit. And so when you get joined together, you can get joined together in your souls. Like, we're knit together. We're soul brothers. We're soul sisters. We're soul mates. You know, we're one. We have wound that together. And so that's what we mean by a soul tie.
So you're saying basically you can have a tie to every person that you had a sexual relationship.
Exactly.
You can or you do.
Well, I think you do, but it can be broken. It can be cut through confession.
And so you think that the soul tie could be the cause of the high divorce rate?
I think it can be done to what we see happening when people reconnect to old classmates or soulmates from the internet. I've seen this happen.
Right.
I don't have any statistics on it. I've just watched it from observation. And because those feelings, they come back at like 17, 18, 16. Man, we really had something.
Yeah.
You know? And you may be a little bit not totally happy with where you are.
But that would probably mean you had to be emotionally involved.
Well, soul is I understand the soul as being your mind, your will, your emotions. And that's where most people live, out of their feelings, right? You know, people say, I don't feel loved. I don't feel like you love me. Like, that's tied to a belief. It's tied to a belief. And if that belief is a lie, you're never gonna come into healthy relationship. You'll be fighting it. Someone says, I don't feel loved. How do I love you? Well, I don't know. I mean, why is it you don't feel loved? Why? You got to find out what they're believing about it, because there's a belief tied to it. Like, you walk into a room, you walk into our church. Some people say, it's the friendliest place I've ever been. Like, this is amazing. Same person came to the same service. They go, no one said hi to me. No one reached out to me, whatever. It's like, what do you mean they didn't? And you can go get the cameras and you can watch and say, oh, yeah, they did. But why? Why did two people have an identical experience but have a total different interpretation? Because of their belief system. And they don't want to own it. Most of them don't want to own it. So for instance, two guys come in with a suit and tie on, all right? And one guy feels totally out of place, like, I don't belong here. Like, this is not for me. Another guy comes in, he asks someone, hey, is this casual Sunday? He goes, no, we dress like this all the time. Oh, cool. Thanks for letting me know. He walks out going, yeah, friendly. It was a little overdressed, but no issue. The other guy said, I don't fit here. I don't belong. Because he has a belief system that I got to dress a certain way in order to be accepted and approved. I've got to dress like other people dress in order to fit in. See, it's all about what he's believing. That's going to project on everything else.
Wow, that's and that's really important for young people to understand.
Yeah.
Because, young people care so much about what other people think of them. And that's a tough thing to break.
Oh, sure.
And I try to break it with my kids young, because like Gemma will come up to me and go, Dad, do you like my hair? And I'll say, well, I love your hair, but do you like it?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think.
Exactly.
And I always try to put that, I put that back on them and make them understand it. Like, hey, if you like it, it doesn't matter what I think or what anyone else thinks. None of that matters. You guys have to understand that, and I'm always trying, because here, people can I don't want my kids ever doing something because they're concerned about what other people think.
Right.
I need to do this because I want them to think this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I really want my kids, and this may sound bad, to just genuinely, not be rude and disrespectful, but just genuinely not care what anyone thinks of you. I think that's a big thing. And if you look at most people who are uber successful, like one common denominator that I always see amongst millionaires, they don't care what anyone thinks about them.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying money's everything, but you know what I mean. They just don't care.
But see, and that's getting into your identity. That's
Like here, if you cared what people thought about you, you wouldn't stand up on that damn pulpit every Sunday and every Saturday, and you certainly wouldn't say some of the things that you say.
Exactly.
You know, you just wouldn't.
No, and but that's where that whole, what I call wholeness, your identity, who you are in God. You believe who God, you know, your core beliefs deep down inside that give you that sense of security to say, you know, like, you know, my son Jonathan.
Yeah.
And he dresses the way he wants to dress. Like he's a Colts fan.
Yeah.
In a Kansas City. Like I didn't drop him on his head.
Right.
But you know, and you go, why are you a Colts fan? Because he loved Jim Harbaugh. And then he was 16. He goes down to Louisiana, 16, 17, with another kid. And they drove their little Mitsubishi down to Louisiana to Peyton Manning quarterback camp because he's playing for Smithville and he's quarterback for Smithville. And we let him drive down there and go. And so, you know, you got Peyton Manning and all these things are, and it's like he's Colts guy, right? And he didn't care. Like, and then he dresses, he likes fashion and stuff. People.
Yeah, I told him quit sending my wife things because it cost me money every time.
People make fun, and he just like let the birds chirp. That's his thing.
Let
the dogs bark.
Yeah.
Let the birds chirp because he's got his identity, and this is who I am.
I sent him a photo one time of Jonathan wearing a Colts jersey. I said, "Do you ever feel like you failed as a father?"
My wife will send me pictures all the time. She'll be because he'll post things on social media, and she'll send it to me, and I'm like, yeah, here, that looks good on Jonathan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like certain guys can wear certain things.
You wearing short pants with your ankles hanging out with no socks is
not going to work.
Look for
it's
you.
not. That's for guys whose waists aren't bigger than their inseam.
Right.
You know,
You got to dress your age.
yeah.
Well, I think it's human nature.
You got to dress your body habitus too.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
You know, like the girl, like that's a little bit heavier set. Like sometimes I was down at in Columbia for Frankie's basketball tournament this weekend, and it was was it St. Patty's Day or what was it this
Snake
week?
Saturday parade.
Yeah.
They had this big parade. They had all these there was a college bar right next to the hotel, and I'm watching some of these girls walk in. I'm like, you don't have a mirror? Nobody told you shouldn't put that on.
But you can't do that anymore, Frank. You're body shaming. You can't.
Well, I'm going to body shame. I don't care. Somebody should have told her she needed to put a damn sweatshirt on. You know? I mean, I ain't going to walk around with a midriff on. You know why? My stomach's gross.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I think on some level it's ingrained in our human nature to seek validation, and to find validation in Christ is a challenge. And how would you suggest to people to find that validation to where they're not looking to their friends, to just anyone out there to validate them, and how to find that validation?
In here, because a lot of times, like if you go try to say that to a high school kid, very few of them receive it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to tell you something. Coaching high school, I'm realizing these kids get a lot thrown at them. It is so hard, so much harder to be a high school kid now than it was when we were in high school.
Agreed.
It's so hard. It's brutal. And you plant the seed, and you're like, guys, this is who you need to find out, your identity and God and what God says about you, right? Not what everyone else says about you, and get them to actually receive that. That's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, you have to have personal revelation. I mean, God has no grandchildren, right? He only has children. And so every one of us has to come to that, what I call, that crisis. Who am I? What am I here for? Like everyone will go through that. What's my purpose? And I think it's only found and realized in God, ultimately. Because you look all around, it's not money. It's not fame. It's not fortune. Why are those people dying off, committing suicide, drug addicts? I mean,
Yeah, Robin Williams. Look, he was the greatest actor. I mean,
Yeah.
And so I think to answer your question, Andrew, it's like everyone kind of has to wrestle through those things. And so for me, it's getting to the core of what do I really believe? And those beliefs then bring freedom. Jesus said, if you abide in me and my word abides in you, then you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. It's not knowing it, but abiding in it. Like I can know how to drive. I had an aunt who had her driver's license, kept it up to date, but wouldn't drive. She refused to drive. She was scared to death. So she knew all the rules, but she didn't activate any of it to get her from point A to B, always depending on other people. And so we can know something, but do we practice it? And that's where the freedom comes. And so core value, core beliefs, for me is I'm fully known by God, fully, 100%. Nothing about fully known and fully loved. Two fundamental core beliefs of mine. That God fully knows me and fully loves me is amazing.
I think sometimes we think that we're hiding from him.
We're not.
100%.
And I do too. I mean, I think he didn't see that one.
And so that
Pretty
alone
slick.
right there brings tremendous security. Like I wouldn't fully know me and love me, but God does. And so therefore, that's a tremendous security.
And I think part of it is like inability for our brains to comprehend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the human brain is capable of understanding God's grace. I mean, you could sit there and say, hey, this is it's an undeserving gift. And matter of fact, the people who don't deserve it actually get more of it. That is not a concept that we're going to grasp in a quid pro quo world. No. We're just not. But I think it's something that you can accept as truth.
Right.
And that's my deal. I'll accept it as truth, but I don't wrap my head around it.
No. There are, the third part of that is that, and then he chose me. Like he fully knew every weakness I would ever have and every struggle I would ever have. And yet he still chose me. Like that blows me away. That's called amazing grace. Like this is a love I've never fully garnered from anybody.
Yeah. And I just like, I think we could understand it if we could offer it to someone else.
Yep.
Right? Which I don't think we're capable of.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
you could
that's right.
forgive someone, right? You could forgive him, but that doesn't mean you want to go hang with him.
No. And that's part of the reason why people think, but see, that's where you have to get understanding what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean that they shouldn't pay a penalty for what they've done. Forgiveness basically sets you free from being bound to what they did to you.
Right.
And sets you free. And it takes you out of the judgment seat and you turn it over to God. And that's what the word forgiveness, it means to put it away from you. It means to let it go. And so you're turning it over to God. Like whatever God wants to do with this person, it's up to him, not up to me. And so now I'm not tied to that hurt. I'm not tied to that offense anymore. I'm not carrying it around like a ball and chain.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not a victim anymore. That's the freeing part of forgiveness. But no.
And it's actually quite selfish. It has nothing to do with anyone else.
No. And the thing is, I forgive not because people deserve it, but because I didn't.
Yeah.
That's what Scripture says. Forgive as you've been forgiven. Like, yeah. Because once I elevate myself above God, we're in trouble. Because here God, who did no wrong, forgave from the cross. Forgave. He didn't need to because he had done no wrong, but he forgave. So who am I to not forgive? Like, if I won't forgive, I've just made myself better than God.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. I mean,
And that's why holding on to unforgiveness is so detrimental.
It's like drinking poison
Yeah.
and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, really, you're right. It's that's 100%. That's a good analogy. Yeah. It's like drinking poison and because holding on to that is, oh my gosh, it's brutal.
Yeah, the scripture calls it a bitter root judgment, and it springs up and defiles others. So I run into people all the time that they'll say, "Hey, do you know so and so?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "He's a friend of mine." I said, "Oh man, he's this that." And I said, "Hey, whoa, whoa, whoa." I said, "He's never done anything wrong to me." I said, "Every word he's ever spoken to me, he's fulfilled." I said, "So that may be your problem and that may be your encounter, but it's not mine, and don't project it onto me.
Right.
And you go deal with it with him, but don't try to get me tied into your bitterness,
Right.
Yeah.
because that's not my experience." And I just go ahead and stop him, because it's like, I'm not going to entertain it.
Especially being a pastor at a church, you run into different circles of people, and there are probably not all circles see eye to eye.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's the old saying. It says, you go to the school teacher and says, "I'm not going to believe everything my kid says about you if you don't believe everything my kid says about me."
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's not a bad play. Yeah. It's not a bad play. Yeah. For sure. So you start, talk to me about what made you start The Rock.
Yeah. So
This must have started back in 2004.
2003, we had our first
2003.
service June 8, 2003.
June 8 of 03.
Yeah.
And so what made you do this?
I got fired. I got fired from the church I'd been at for 20 years.
You were at a church for 20 years, a local church.
Yeah, local church in Kansas City.
And they fired. Can you tell me why?
Well, there were 8 of us that were fired. So we had a church. I was a youth pastor for 11 years. We had a Christian school. I was a PE teacher. I was a chaplain. I wore a lot of hats, did singles ministry, did youth ministry for 11 years, did some administration. It was a small church, about 500 people or so. And then then the senior pastor who was there resigned, and then I put my hat in the ring to become the new senior pastor. And so through deliberation and stuff, I was an interim senior pastor, and then they invited me to come. And so for the next 9 years, I was the senior pastor of the church, and we grew, and we were building a building. We were going to build an 1,100 seat sanctuary that was debt free. We had over $2 million in the bank to do it back then. We were getting really close to being able to break ground and do this thing. And but it was a power play with the board, and they were holding meetings without me I'm the president of this thing, and they're holding meetings, which I didn't know about. And they came in with some things, well, this, and this, but nothing was illegal or morally incorrect or doctrinally wrong. It was the system, okay?
Right.
It was the very system that I had gotten caught up in myself, because the 2 senior pastors before me were pushed out, and now I'm the next victim, if I can say that.
Right.
And so I'm like, guys, there's nothing here of substance. This isn't right. This shouldn't happen. You're going to blow this church out of the water. You're going to stall this bill. I mean, it's just, so I resisted it. And we got a team in from an arbitration team in, and they just wanted to deal with me. And I said, no, this is going to stop, because you're not doing this. We're bringing all the pastors on into this discussion, because that was part of the deal. The system was that the board had all the power, but little or to no responsibility of day-to-day operation.
Right.
It's like, you run the business, you're the founder of the business, you're the one that people are coming to, and now you got a board that literally is in control of everything. But you're doing all the work.
Right.
And it's just, those systems are out there, okay? And so I was getting counsel from other people around the world, literally, and they said, the two pastors that had gotten fired or forced to resign, I called them up and I said, man, I realize now what you went through. I was part of what they went through. I wasn't an elder. I was elder one time, but not the other. And I realized I participated in the harm and the hurt I was giving to those families. And I felt terrible. Like, God, this is horrible. And I called them up and I repented to them. And I said, please forgive me. And they both said, we resigned too soon. Don't let that system do this to you. And I'm like, I'm trying to get a word, like, get out of Dodge, leave.
Yeah.
You know, literally I did. I mean, I could tell, the story goes deep, but long story short, I just said, guys, this is not right. This is not God's will. God hasn't lifted his hand off of me to pastor this church in this city. And I said, you're going to blow this church out of the water. And they're like, nope, that's not going to happen. The people want this. I said, well, let's take it to the people and see. Like, one of the elders, who was my friend, I mean, these were my friends. I'd vacationed with them, prayed with them, fasted with them. I mean, loved these guys. And they said, that's not the way we do business around here. And at that meeting, and then one of the other pastors spoke up and said, to one of the other elders, how could you sit here and say nothing? And he just said, well, the elders have spoken. And that day, I mean, it was a kangaroo thing. It was already decided.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and so we got letters. Several of the pastors had spoken up and said, if you fire Phillip, you're firing us. And they fired 8 people that day.
Wow.
And so
So what happened to the church?
So now we got no severance, nothing. I mean, we got a letter stating, turn in your credit cards, turn in your keys. You're no longer welcome on the property, and you can arrange to come back in and get your personal items out of your office under escort. It was so corporate. It was so, I'm like.
So is this church still around? You don't have to name the church.
Yeah, no. So long story short, that church dwindled and dwindled. They hired a new guy and did the same thing. And then some of those elders left, and that church got so small they had to sell the building and everything. The good news is there's a church there now. There's a school there now. So it's still being used for God's purposes, which there's no joy in my life. I mean, like, I gave 20 years of my life to that.
Yeah.
I love those people. I thought we were going to grow old together, right? That was my heart, and that's what I was trying to do, for him not to do that. But it was outside of my control. And so what I had to do was, now I had 6 people. One of them that was fired was my wife. So I've got no income.
And children.
And I've got children. And the fact that my kids love God today and they're serving in the church is a miracle. Because most of them would have said, I don't want nothing to do with church.
Yeah, because they probably weren't, but what, 10?
No, one of them, Jonathan, had gone to MU. So he was kind of...
How old Jonathan?
Jonathan's going to be 40 July 18th.
I didn't realize he was that old. He looks really good.
He does look good 40.
Yeah. So he was 20 at the time.
And Ashley was a freshman in school.
Okay.
And so, freshman, sophomore. And the fact that my kids love God and love the church is a miracle. It's a gift from God. Because I know a lot of bitter pastor kids. It want nothing to do with church. Church can be terrible, man. I mean, it can be ugly. It can be. That's why I despise politics. I despise it in the church and out of the church.
Right.
I got little to, So, so literally, we all met in a conference room of a former person who worked for me. On Monday, we're fired Monday morning with nothing. By Monday evening, we all said, we're still called to the city. We're still called to the Northland. And now people are hearing that we've been fired, and where are we going to meet? Like, all these people said, you're our pastor. You guys are our pastors. They're not our pastors. You're our pastor. Where are we going to meet? And the scripture that was helpful for me said, a hireling flees when there's trouble, but a shepherd won't. And I knew I was called as a shepherd, and I knew they referred to me as a hireling. One of the elders did in one of the meetings, because we've hired you to do a job. I said, and he's pounding his fist on the table, and I'm going, excuse me, but I brought you on as an elder. Like, I brought you on. You didn't hire me to do anything. but that's the power. It's about power.
Yeah.
Every battle that's ever been fought. I had a professor in college, Bible college, said every battle that's ever been fought has ultimately been fought over who's in charge. And I go, man, there's a lot of truth there. I mean, we used to own that land 300 years ago. We want it back now. There's some power grab going on here. And so that I was accused of a lot of stuff that wasn't true. And I just had to bear up under it and let the fruit be. And I was called a Rehoboam. You're not listening to the counsel of the elders. I mean, all this stuff. There were rumors that my marriage was in trouble, that I built this house and I was sucking air and wasn't being able to make the payment. There's all this stuff, like, it's all lies.
Well, here, let's just hypothetically say all that's true.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And your marriage, you're struggling in your marriage, and you're struggling financially. Yeah. Why does that mean that they have to fire you? Yeah. I don't understand that.
It was at the end of the day.
I mean, that happens to everybody.
The power structure of the elders being in charge was diminishing because the pastoral role was having more importance. And your power base is beginning to dwindle, and you got to get it back. And that's how you get it back. You exercise that.
I just wonder if it was possible that maybe you were getting too much control.
Well, too much influence.
Right. There you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was under control. I mean, they controlled everything. I mean, they controlled what you spent on a vacuum cleaner. I mean,
so how many of those people, when you started the Rock of KC, showed up on Sunday?
Yeah. So we had a meeting we got fired on that Monday. By 5:00 that evening, we had a portable sound system. We had a place, and we had our first public meeting to announce that we were starting the Rock on Thursday night of that same week. And on Sunday, June the 8th of 2003, we had our very first service. So
you fired on Monday, and the following Sunday, you did your very first service.
Exactly.
And so where did you do it at?
We did it at the Expo Center.
KCI Expo Center?
Expo Center.
So you just rented the space.
So they had all those rooms on the side where they could open up. And we had...
It's a huge area.
Yeah, but this was we eventually moved to the arena, but before they had the board, the special meeting rooms where they could
partition them off.
And so we had our first meeting in those rooms, and we had like 800 people show up.
You're kidding me.
No, but we had grown, the church had grown from 500 to average weekend attendance around 1,350.
So of those 1,350, 800 of them, you would basically say...
They showed up for that.
Showed up for your first
service.
service.
Some of them were just curious.
That first
Sunday,
Sunday
with us.
That first Sunday that the church you left were probably like, we may have made a mistake here.
I don't know.
No, people like that don't think they're just they had planned for that.
Yeah,
they knew when they fired him that they were going to take a hit.
I don't think so.
They're that arrogant that they didn't think that they were going to take a hit?
I don't think so.
That's pretty arrogant.
I had a guy come to me who went to them and sat down with them and tried to reason with them, and because every other time it didn't take a hit.
Every other time they've
this was a pattern.
Somebody.
Okay, this was a pattern. And that's where I said, I got into that. I mean, I got sucked into it. I'm brand new out of Bible college. This is my first full-time vocational ministry, right? So I'm thinking this is the way church is done. Because I didn't have I had no other background. And so when I called those pastors up and repented to them, I said, guys, I realize that I participated in something I no longer believe in. That form of government, I no longer believe in it.
Right.
And I had, so I had culpability. Like you reap what you sow. And so I had sown into those guys getting forced out, and now I'm reaping it. And so that's when I said, God, look, I quit. I've gotten myself fired. I'm quitting. How can I be? I'm unworthy to lead. That's how I had that conversation with God. And it's like, you're not quitting. I said, yeah, but look, I'm fired. And it's like, we've already had this discussion. I said, Lord, when have I ever, from the time I got saved to going to Bible college and to giving 20 years of my life to full-time ministry, when have I ever said I quit? He said, you haven't. I said, so when have we had this discussion? And he said one word to me. He said, lordship. And I hung my head because I taught lordship. Lordship means I'm not in charge. Lordship means I don't say what I will and won't do. And I knew he had me. Right. God, he was gracious, but he had me. Because when I said yes to him, I signed a blank check. I signed it.
And that doesn't mean it's not scary as hell.
No.
It's terrifying.
Hey, listen, I had a house payment, had a kid in college. I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from.
You probably didn't want that transition to go down like that.
No. It's not. I have church planners that hate me, though. Because church planning is tough. It's hard. My nephew is in Chicago now.
Yeah, lungs.
And he's been a part of a huge church, in platforms where he's spoken to thousands. Man, they're well over a year into this now, and are getting close. And he's working 2 jobs.
Yeah,
it's hard.
They got 40 people.
So
in
in 2003, you start the Rock. When did you build the building?
So we were mobile. That's what's crazy. We moved from building to building to building for a long time, until we built that building.
And then you were just advertised where you were going to be that weekend?
We sometimes didn't know. You had to check in because we were between the Expo Center, a couple of the hotel, Ambassador, not Ambassador, but the Embassy Suites, and the Hilton right there in that 112th I-29 area.
Yeah, I know where you're at.
And one time we had to meet in a barn where we have the hayride, the annual hayride.
Yeah.
We had to meet there. And so we were bouncing all around.
For how many years?
From 2003, we bought the land. I think we purchased that land in 2006 and then began to break ground. And we moved in on September 28, 2008.
So 5 years later.
5 years. We did finally land at the old farmland building, which that's where we landed. We got that. Well, we were at the old Braniff building, which was right next to the TWA overhaul base. Mm-hmm. We got there for a year and a half before we had to get out of it. And then we finally got to move to the farmland building. But we went back and forth for a while. It was all portable. It was nice when we had some seasons of this is the building.
Right.
Now,
and then go ahead.
Now, when you made the transition from the church that you were fired from to starting the Rock, a lot of times I feel like we force things to grow at a rate that we want to grow them at, and it's outside of probably God's timing. How much effort did you personally have to put in, and how much effort did you put on, or how much just surrender and faith did you put in God to say, God, this is what I believe, this is what you've told me, and I'm going to let you kind of build the community around me?
Yeah, that's been my heart. I've heard this statement years ago by a pastor that stuck in me. It says, God, I'm going to be concerned about the depth of my ministry. I'll let you determine the breadth. And so that's been very securing to me to say, one man plants, another waters, but only God can give the increase. So I'll never take credit for any increase because it's only God who can do it. And so I've just I've had desires to reach more people.
Sure.
And we had plateaued for several years around that 700-800 mark. And I went through some deep times of getting up at 2 or 3 in the morning, just troubled, like what's going on? Like,
Oh gosh.
God, if I reach my limit, maybe that was a special time and a place and that's gone. I'm okay. I'm not trying, but I think there's more. But if I'm staying in the way, then let me know if I need to grow or move out. Like I'm having these, and no one knows this. My wife doesn't know it. 2 or 3 in the morning, getting up, going out on my deck, just having this time and just trying to wrestle through it, personally going, I want to accept. I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to think of myself more highly than I ought.
Yeah.
But Lord, if there's something that needs to change in me, if there's whatever, but I think there's more in me, but maybe there's not. So, you have these times where you're not talking to anyone else about it. It's you and God. Like sometimes God says, go get the help, admit you need help and get it. Sometimes he said, you and I are going to work this out. And that was one of those things. And I finally probably went on for months. It was like, I was ready for it to end. Like something, like, tell me, you're whatever. And finally it just lifted. And I said, we're going to grow. And I went to our team. I said, guys, we're going to grow. And I said, but we're not going to grow if we don't add another service. And we're going to add a Saturday night service because no one in the Northland's offering it except the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. I said, and no, I didn't want it because I'd come from that. We'd already had one. And it was nice, not Saturdays are free,
Yeah.
It's socially tough. But, and none of the team wanted it. And I knew that, but I heard the Lord. And there was no reason that we needed to add it, really, because we weren't full on the other two. But I heard, but I said, growth brings pressure. So you guys need to get ready because the pressure's coming and it's going to reveal every place we're weak.
Yeah.
And guess what? We started growing. And then I found out pressure came. And then I found out I had a children's pastor who's having an affair right under my nose. I mean, I have an executive pastor who's not doing his job, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, that stuff will expose things like that.
yeah, pressure reveals.
Yeah.
It doesn't, if people put it, well, I'm under pressure. It's like, yeah, because it came out of you because it was in you.
Right.
You deal with it. Like if you blame it on the pressure, you're a victim.
Yeah.
You're not going to grow.
Pressure is not the problem.
It's not. Pressure revealed what was there. I squeezed the orange and sour came out. It's like the pressure didn't put the sour in there. It just brought it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because pressure ain't going anywhere.
No, it's not.
No. I mean,
But you weren't sitting there pushing
No.
your will. It was his will.
Yeah.
He planted it in you, and you just walked it out.
Yeah. It's like, absolutely. Because I honestly believe I can plant, I can water. But the scripture says only God gives increase. And he says to divide your portion, 10, 11, 12 ways. You never know which one's going to grow.
Yeah.
That's why diversification is important.
Absolutely.
Like and the Bible teaches it in investing. Like diversify. And even someone, you hit one. It might be the one that you needed. Right? And so, but that part, I just won't touch that. I will not touch it. I refuse to touch it. It's like, yeah, God used me. I'll admit that. But he's the one that caused the growth, guys. Come on. I didn't put the life in the seed.
Yeah.
I didn't cause it to rain. I didn't do that. God did. And so I just won't touch that piece.
right.
But I did press in. Yeah, I prayed. I fasted. I wrestled through it for sure.
Which is really, some people might say, that's a passive way to create growth in any area of your life, to lean in and just do nothing and pray.
But he didn't do nothing.
No, I understand that. But his act of surrender, and because people, I think in today's mentality are you got to grind it out. You got to, and yes, you have to put one foot in front of the other. But at some point when you're at a place where you're like, this is beyond me, I think surrender. I think first and foremost, surrender and prayer to create increase, just like you're speaking to, is harder because you really don't. You're not in motion.
Well, but here at the end of the day, it's like you're still being very much active. The surrender part is just preventing you, in my opinion, from going crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
no, that
hey,
makes
this
sense.
is going to do what it's going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to control what I can control, and I'm going to still try to increase volume, right? And by volume in your situation is probably number of participants or number of people there every Sunday, because you're tracking that for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
We want to reach as many people as we can.
Right. You want to reach as many. So you're constantly trying to grow that number.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you're saying, hey, I'm not taking credit for it. I'm going to do what I got to do. I'm going to put my foot forward. I'm going to do what he tells me to do. And, whatever happens, happens. Because if you sit there and try to control that number, that's where you're gonna lose your mind.
Even some of the the church growth, some of these churches that have exploded, none of them are still exploding at the same rate that they did at the beginning.
It's always going to plateau.
It becomes that machine becomes a grinding, terrible thing. It's a terrible taskmaster.
Yeah. Well, and some of them get to a point where it can only get lower.
Yeah.
It shot up so fast.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that are like, oh, I don't like what he said today. I ain't going back. Yeah. I don't like this. That convicted me, or whatever. And it's like, okay, but is what he's saying false?
Right.
It pissed you off and it touched a nerve.
It confronts you.
They say when you throw a rock into a pack of dogs, the one that barks is the one that got hit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, if I did that, I probably can't go. I can't go to church. I'm not going anymore.
The word confront you, and I think that's something that you speak when you're up there is it's going to get in your business.
Yeah.
It's going to confront you, and just be prepared to maybe hear some things that you don't want to hear. But the truth sometimes hurts, but it also sets you free.
Well, and here, how many times have you probably had to deal with that? Probably every service almost.
Yeah.
Where you touch a nerve for someone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How do you respond to that? Because sometimes I would be like, hey, just then don't come back. And then you can't really be that way.
I mean,
I'd be like, what do you want me to tell you? I didn't say it. God did. I'm just telling you what he said.
Yeah. My constant for me is that I just don't want to misrepresent God.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And I don't want to get in the flesh in the sense of, I want to make sure that I always speak truth in love and not being mean or just mean-spirited or something. Because a sharp knife cuts, but a blunt knife injures, right? Mm-hmm. So the surgeon's scalpel is meant to bring healing. But if it's not sharp, it's going to bring hurt and injury. So truth spoken without love is blunt. It harms, it injures, it doesn't heal. But truth spoken in love will heal. And that's my biggest thing. It's like I try to really not become a shock jock. You know what I mean? Like there are shock jocks out there that just want to say things to get a reaction. And I try to never do that. And I try to make sure I'm never speaking to an individual that I know's got an issue.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I don't want to pick on them from the pulpit. That should be a private conversation.
Right.
Right. That's not love. Like you're a coward at that point. You won't go to them.
Yeah.
And so those are some of my, what I call my boundaries or my guards that I try to keep up so that I don't misrepresent the Lord, but I always speak truth in love. And so those are the things. And then I know, I mean, the word of God is quick and active and sharp, and it divides. I get it. And that's why I said, are you ready to get into the word? You ready for the word to get into you?
Yeah.
Are you ready for to get it up in your business? Because it's a living word. It's not a dead document. Like this thing is going to speak. And it's going to rattle some cages. It's going to, and you want it to. Or what's the purpose?
Right.
Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm reading the book. I hate this book. Why am I reading it? It's like, I'm reading this novel. It's terrible. Well, quit reading it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, set it down.
You're going to hate reading, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so I have to, but I go away and I try not to do a lot of self-reflection because it'll kill you. Like, oh man,
I was going to ask you, do you Monday morning quarterback your...
You said this wrong, and or the people are going to hate you. I mean, the enemy. When I first started being a senior pastor, I wanted to resign every day after I preached. Like I wanted to go. I was so depressed after I preached. I just wanted to go crawl in a hole, get in a fetal position, and never come out. It was that much of a spiritual battle. And I don't know, like Craig Rochelle. I don't know if you know Craig.
Sure. Yeah, I've read his
He's
book.
got one of the largest churches
Soul Detox
in the world.
Isn't that him? Soul Detox? Yeah.
Soul Detox. He used to throw up before every sermon.
Yeah.
Like you never know it today. But I mean, there is a spiritual battle that goes on. I'm not trying to get sympathy, but I had to get.
Well, you're definitely, people like you are 100% going to encounter resistance.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just face it. You're going to.
Yeah.
I mean, more resistance than most because.
And especially in the age we're living.
Oh,
the
yeah.
internet. And
And it could come at you all different ways.
Yeah. And before the internet and all that, you used to have a voice in people's life. Like a voice, But now you're an echo, maybe, because they got 10,000 guys better than me that they can go tap into, and with no accountability. Like, oh, Craig Garcell's my pastor. Have you ever met him? No, but he's my pastor.
They're wrong.
But you know what I'm saying, though?
Well, because they're wrong. I mean, I like listening to Craig Rochelle. I like listening to Stephen Furtick. I like listening to Tony Evans. There's a great.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
But you have to come together corporately and be a part of a community.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
You just do.
Well,
because where's Craig Rochelle going to be?
He's not coming to do your funeral.
He's not coming He's not coming when your kids are having issues, and he's not going to, like what we dealt with Nina and the whole entire community was there. They're not going to be there. You have to be.
No, they can't.
You have to be embedded in a church community.
Yeah.
You have to.
And God wired it for that.
Yeah. So to say that Craig Rochelle, you live in Kansas City and Craig Rochelle is your pastor, it's probably not a smart comment.
Yeah.
I mean, you may want to rethink that.
Right.
And here, there's times here, maybe I'm on the elliptical, I'm bored. I'm going to put on Stephen Furtick.
Sure.
I'm going to put on Craig Rochelle or whoever I want to listen to that day.
Communicators.
Yeah, they're good.
I listen to. If they would preach better, I would.
I think there's churches out there, and it's not a church that these kind of satellite churches are not a church for me. But if you're going and listening to a pastor who's satellite, and there's still a community of junior pastors around the project to reach out to, and they're still community based, that could probably still be effective. Now, for me, that wouldn't work.
No, there's just I
want more interaction.
Well, you want to number one, you want to pour into a community and have them, pour into you too.
Yeah.
It's just I never realized it. But as I got older, it's incredibly important to me. Like I've had this conversation with Michelle, and here, it's a struggle every weekend. to get to church.
Sure.
Every single weekend, it's a struggle. Last weekend, we were in Columbia. We ended up going to a church in Columbia, which is fine. We went, right? Sure. But this weekend, Thursday, we leave. We go to Minneapolis for volleyball. Last weekend was Columbia for Frankie's basketball. I'm like, babe, at some point, we have to. We can't keep doing this.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, we can't keep doing this. It's just it's too much.
But the thing too that's happening with the internet and all the good that is brought, but in these phones right here, it's that we think that what we're doing here, that we could have done this through Zoom and filmed it. It's different.
Yeah.
We're in each other's presence. Okay. You can go Simon Sinek. You know Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
Okay. So 11, 12 years ago, he did a talk.
I like him. He does the
Brilliant guy. Yeah.
What's what TED Talks?
Yeah, he does, but he does other things too.
Yeah,
but
he's Start with Why was one of the ones that I watched.
Start with Why.
It was a marketing deal.
But he talks about, long time ago, like 10, 11, 12 years ago, he said, get this out of your hand when you're talking. He said, because it's telling people this is more important than the person I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he also talked about, he laid out what happens chemically in our bodies when we're face to face. There are certain hormones that are released in our bodies that give us a sense of connection when we're in person. That doesn't happen through the screen.
Right.
As great as it is,
Yeah.
it's different. And so why now? Because of all the connectedness we have. We can have Zoom, FaceTime, all this stuff. Loneliness is one of the top reasons for suicide and people feeling lonely and not connected. Because we've bought into this thing. It's the same. And it's not. And God designed us to come together.
Yeah.
And when you violate God's laws, you don't break them, they break you. And our society's breaking down.
Yeah.
COVID was another tool of the enemy, whether you believe about it, but how it got used to separate and tell people you're going to get the same result by tuning in online that you would be in person or whatever.
It's just not true.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
We
true.
need this. Like, I'm enjoying this time. I mean, it's been a while since you and I have been together.
Yeah.
We've been to Haiti. We've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And we could have done it zoomed in, but it's not the same.
I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean,
If you'd have said, "Hey, I could do it on this day, but we have to Zoom it," I'd say, "Let's pick another day."
but Simon in his talk, and I forget which talk it was, but he said, why do all the creators of these things say that you can do all this stuff remote? Why do 30,000 of them get on airplanes, rent rooms together, and go to a convention in Las Vegas if we can always be remote?
Right.
Yeah.
He said, because that human connection cannot be replaced.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm thinking, this guy said this 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm going, bingo. He's not even professing to be like this Christian or I don't know where his belief system is.
I don't either.
Truth is truth, whether or not.
Yeah.
All truth is God's truth, is what I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's where
I like Simon Sinek. I like
Yeah,
listening to
yeah.
him.
I have a question for you.
Yep.
So, do you have friends who you're close with that don't attend your church, are believers, but go to another church? And how does that affect the relationship, or does it at all affect the relationship?
I don't think it would bother you.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
have
that's
most
like-
of my Christian friends outside. I mean, I've got a lot of them that go to other churches. Yeah, but a lot of pastors' friends who pastor other churches.
Yeah.
In this city and outside of this city.
Yeah.
And man, I'm for whoever can reach people for Christ. I'm for
Yeah.
I'm for them. I really am. I bless them. There are people who don't like me. and I'm not going to reach. They don't care for my style. They don't care for my humor. There's a lot of things, whatever, and I get that, right?
That happens like even as a physical therapist. Both things that you guys are talking about, where you have friends and family that, maybe it's not geographically desirable for them to come to me when I was a physical therapist, and it may not be geographically desirable for them to go to church at the Rock. Maybe a 20 or 25-minute trip is a pain in the butt for them. They're not doing it. When they can go to church 5 minutes away. Right.
Yeah.
So,
And the reason why I asked that question is because I didn't know if that would harbor animosity between you and that person because they're not involved in your community. I mean, I think that, I'm 100% comfortable with your response, and I could almost predict that you would have said that, but I just didn't know how that looked because you face 100% different challenges than a person who's not up there speaking.
Yeah. I think that I think part of it is for me, it's I don't ever want to stop feeling like if someone leaves or someone gets upset or bad, like I don't care.
Yeah.
Let them go. It's like that's indicating my heart's getting hardened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And man, I don't want that. I don't want a hardened heart. But I have to hold people loosely. I don't own anybody. I don't own anybody.
Right.
And they're not really my people. They're God's people. And I'm God's person. Like I'm a people too. And so I've really had to I care deeply for people. I want them to grow in Christ. I want them to be right with God. I do. And so I preach with passion and teach with, hopefully, like conviction. But at the end of the day, I'm not responsible for those people. I'm responsible to them.
Yeah, okay.
That's a clear boundary.
right.
Yeah.
Like I'm not responsible for what they do with what I teach.
Yeah.
I'm not. So that's clear for me. Like I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my newborn child because if I don't, they're totally dependent on me, right? But as they grow, I've got to let go of some things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or they're not going to wipe their own bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not going to learn how to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be, and I don't want that. And so that's a clear, I'm responsible to or for. I have to ask those questions. That's help. That keeps me from trying to be controlling.
Yeah.
Or being a messiah.
Yeah.
I don't have a messiah complex. You need Jesus. I need him too, bro. Like, we both need him, man. Like I can't replace him. I can bring influence. I can bring counsel. I can bring wisdom. I can bring correction. I can bring exhortation. Iron sharpen iron. But man, you and I, we all put our pants on the same way.
Right.
One leg at a time.
Right.
And we always put our left leg on last. Because it's the last one that's left. That's a joke. You were thinking, weren't you?
I was like, because I'm like, wait, I always put my left one in first.
Yeah, that's a dad joke, right?
I jump right in them. I don't know what you.
Yeah, you jump in with
that's
both
what
feet.
Both feet. Yeah, man, I float out of bed. They're there for me in the morning.
They're ready to go.
Supernatural power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead. What were you going to
I was
ask?
going to make a silly joke. Go ahead.
Well, I want to ask one more because we're coming up on that 2:00 or so. What I'm wondering is where do you see so first question, what's your average number of attendees at the Rock every weekend?
So we have 3 services, Saturday night, 2 Sundays. Right now we have not come back to our pre-COVID numbers.
Really?
Yeah, still haven't. Yep.
Do you think there are is that pretty common? Do you
It's
think?
real common.
Yeah.
It's real common around the globe. It's really common. Guys who study that said that was the trend already. Mm-hmm. COVID just accelerated it.
Right. It was a
That people were
catalyst.
giving you less and less Sundays, less and less attendance.
Yeah.
So used to be like they would give you a church member would be considered 1 out of every 4. And now it's like 1 out of every 6 now, or 8. They're considered active members.
Right.
It's crazy, but that's the world we're living in. Okay. So our average weekend attendance right now, I'd say it's running around that 1,200.
Okay.
Whereas pre-COVID, we were 1,450, 1,500. There was a period of time where we were having 1,800, 1,750.
So you lost 20%.
I don't know what that is. I mean, I
If
just,
you went from 15 to 12,
Yeah.
that's 20%.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
So
that doesn't mean that all those people have stopped coming. They're just not coming as often.
Right.
Like we can
Yeah.
literally have, like we had a weekend a few weeks ago, close to 1,300. The next week, 1,096.
Right.
300 people decide not to come back.
Right.
You know, or 250. That's the world we live in. That's
Right.
church reality.
Wow.
Whereas, you know, restaurants.
heck, you can't function off them kind of. Well, they probably have to.
You know, they have to. I mean, like, how many times do you go back to your restaurant? So you got to have a huge pool.
Yeah.
Right? But what's crazy though is that our giving is stronger than it's ever been,
Yeah.
Wow.
which means, and also the whole transition from giving through a check at the building,
To doing it on your phone.
doing it on your phone.
Yeah.
It used to be, 40, 70, 30 when it first started. And now I'd have to go back and look. We're probably 85% online now.
Just give it to you online. Yeah.
Yep.
So what what are you thinking the trajectory is? Are you ever thinking that you would have a school? Are you ever thinking that you would, start with the preschool, move into elementary, do something like that? Are you planning on expanding the building? What do you, last question.
Yeah.
What do you what are we looking at from the future standpoint?
Yeah, so the Northland Christian School, the one that's on 169 Highway,
Yep.
they're expanding, they're growing, they're putting in football fields. That came out of our church.
Oh, did it really? Okay.
So I've done school.
Got it.
And I'm all for
So
it.
you're already pushing it.
I'm already for because what happens with churches and schools is they become a school with a church.
Yeah.
And you get people that have no interest in the church, but they want their kids Christian educated.
Right.
And it's like, I've been there, done that. We financed it. We supported that thing. $300,000 a year went to support people and their scholarships and stuff. And to get, it's just like, I'm
So
not
the
graced for
rock,
that.
the Rock of KC is giving monies to Northland Christian for
Not directly now, but I'm saying is the church I got fired from.
Right.
That came out of, we had.
So the church that you got fired from was giving monies to Northland Christian.
Yeah,
Got it.
we had the school at our property.
Got it.
That was where it was at, and we
Right.
were expanding. We had built it to 8th grade. We were getting ready to do.
Well, and the reason why I'm asking is I like to see Northland Christian, elevate and
Yep.
get more kids and, the athletics be more competitive and
Right.
not just 8-man football, but be 11-man football and actually see it
and
grow.
it's headed that way.
Yeah. It's going to take some time.
It's going to take time,
But
but
you're probably looking at 10 or 15 years probably still.
so I don't have. So I'm thinking they do it well, and I'm all for that. Like I'm not graced to do that,
Right.
and especially I'll be 65 next month. It's not
Right.
like a thing, but we have plans for expansion. In fact, when we were running 1750, 1800 there for a season, and just before 2019 in that area, we were looking at knocking out the walls. Like we've got future plans, but it's all dictated by growth.
Yeah. Sure.
We're not going to do it just for doing its sake.
Right.
We're going to do it because we've heard from God. And
And I remember you added that third service on a Sunday. So you were doing
Yeah.
1 Saturday and 3 on Sunday.
3 on Sunday. And
Yeah.
that third service never took traction.
No.
Never. And we've had.
It was a noon service or a 12:15.
You know how many pastors have tried Saturday nights and they've not been able to get any traction with it? Like Pleasant Valley tried it years ago. In the building that we left to come to ours.
Pleasant Valley doesn't have a Saturday night? Wow, it shocks me.
No, I mean, they had another, and so for whatever reason, we've been graced to have a solid Saturday night.
Yeah.
And others that have tried it haven't been able to. And I don't know. I'm thankful.
Right.
But we've got a solid core of about 300 people that come with kids and all.
Yeah.
250, 300 in there.
Yeah.
Which still the average size of a church in America today is, before COVID, it was around 100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when you hear of Furtick and, these 20, 30,000, I think Craig Rochelle he's got, I don't know how many campuses now. Like,
Yeah, they're all over.
But they come in with everything done. Like, they have the same building. They have the architecture already. They buy up the land. They've got it down. They're like a franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, they're like a corporate church.
Exactly. And he's the guy. Like, no one else is going to preach at a Life Church except him.
Right.
He's going to do it because he's the Jay Leno. He's the guy people tune in to see, and he
Right.
knows it. Right? And that's the thing that they don't know yet is what's going to happen when he's gone. Will someone come in that has the,
Well,
because
and-
he is an incredible guy.
Well,
I've
and-
been in meetings with him. I mean, he's in that Michael Jordan category, that
Yeah.
1%.
Right.
You know what I mean? Their focus. They don't deviate from their rhythms. at
Well,
all.
you can tell by the way he preaches.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Joel Osteen's the same way.
Yeah.
Joel Osteen does one thing, and that he edits, because that's what he did for his dad. He sits down with the guys and they edit their show line by line, and then he memorizes his sermons.
Really?
Yeah, he memorizes his sermons.
Yeah.
And then he won't go. I've been with him, and he walked us through their facilities and everything. He's the nicest guy you ever meet. Like, he is genuinely nice. And he's got his critics, but he loves Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. And he won't go. He knows the exact lighting when he gets out of lighting, so he stays within a certain parameter of his podium.
Yeah, he don't move around a lot.
I know, but this is him. But
Yeah.
and he goes, I don't do outside speaking. If it is, it's a message I've already written. His brother, who's a doctor, who is his chief, he's the one that runs the team, runs the staff, runs the Wednesday nights and all that.
Yeah.
That's it. He's focused. This is what I do. That's amazing.
Yeah, people that have the big venue,
Yeah.
they really have to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be robotic,
They do.
and not like in their preaching, but
Right.
in their routine.
In their routine.
They have to be robotic.
They do.
I listen to all kinds of different people on podcasts, and these uber successful people like that Bedros Keuilian, and your Joe Rogans and
Yeah.
Dana Whites, and them guys. Their routine is that do not interfere with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not interfere with their routine. So there's something to say for
There
it.
is. Yeah.
There's something to say for it. Well, listen, thank you very much.
Thanks.
This was awesome. I wanted to have you on. I wanted to introduce you to, I know everyone's probably thinking, man, who's this Pastor Phillip? Pastor Phillip, Pastor Phillip. Now everybody knows the infamous
Yeah.
Pastor Phillip.
Pastor Phillip.
At the Rock at KC. We've been attending. Actually, you're the one that got me to go.
Yeah. I've been
And,
there since.
The twins were in carriers, and the twins are 10 and a half now. So it has to be 10 years I've been going.
I just want to. I was reflecting coming here about our relationship, and then you were concerned about my rotator cuff surgery,
Yeah.
and then when you heard that, what was happening, and he said, "Hey, my brother can help you," and that's how we got connected.
Yeah.
You cared enough about what I was going through. Then I'd run out of insurance.
Yeah.
And I had frozen shoulder.
I remember.
And
Did you have to get it manipulated or anything, or did it?
no, remember you sent me back to get an MRI, and then one of your guys at the Liberty Clinic, he says, he goes, frozen shoulder can come on like that and can go like that, and he said that to me, and he goes, and inside faith leapt inside of me, and I go, I'm going to believe for that, and because I was all set to go, because this is it.
It was stuck. I remember it was stuck.
Man.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then we talked about it and all that, and I was considering it. And then one day, boom.
Yeah.
And no pop, nothing.
Just woke up
And
and,
I'm
it was
like,
able-
God, how come you couldn't have done that before I had the surgery?
Right. Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so I appreciate you guys. You're good.
Oh yeah, you became one of the family for sure. Yeah. You're here. It looks like is it John? No, it's Ashley and Kenneth's kids are going to go to St. Andrews.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so Jude. It's Jude.
Jude.
Jude's going to shadow Frankie George. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, shadow
Okay.
with Frankie George.
I
so.
know they.
It may not be the one you want him to shadow.
No,
with.
they were considering it. Actually, my granddaughter wants to be homeschooled. They sent me a text, "Hey, Pops, you ready to homeschool?" I said, "Well, let's make it work, whatever."
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, good deal. Thanks so much for being on. I
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
You got it. You
All
got
right.
it. All right.